One of the things that certainly seems to be true, certainly in the past, leading up to today, and as we peer forward, is change. Change seems to be that constant that no matter what particular field you may be looking at, you have to be prepared to accept and adapt and be resilient as these things come upon us. So given your perceptions of the future of this career field, what advice would you have for students as they position themselves to be successful as we move forward?
Sure. I think that that notion of embracing change as opposed to being afraid of change is super important. I would have to say that when I think over, a long career of who are the people that tended to grow and thrive in tech firms versus, pardon me, those who might have been more vulnerable to job elimination because things were changing in the firm or in various firms I've worked in. I think the key thing is to always be looking over the horizon to what is the next thing. And you can't, this is going to be advice for any career that you would go into, but I think one of the hardest things when you transition out of a school environment is to embrace your responsibility for educating yourself moving forward. And for a number of years at Kronos, my last employer, I was responsible for an internship program for future marketing employees in the summers. And that was one of the things that really distinguished the people that you could see stepping right into a job versus those that might fumble, is those that were out there understanding that they couldn't just wait for instruction, that they needed to take what they already knew and seek out, asking the right questions, seeking out resources on their own that would help them learn that much more about a particular thing. And I think that critical thinking and that thirst for knowledge is something that a Middlebury education can position you really well for. But I will tell you that decades after you leave Middlebury, people who are successful in their careers, I think, are those that think beyond the current limitations, whether that's technology or whether that's, well, this is the way we've always done things here. And you've got so many tools now that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago. So as much as the internet can be that invasion of privacy, it also makes it easy for you to reach out and tap sources like Google, like LinkedIn, to say, well, who are 5 or 10 people that maybe I know, or I know somebody who knows them, who are already doing really interesting things around this topic that I want to learn more about, and reaching out to them and asking, well, how did they learn about it? And how do they still learn about it? So I think that curiosity and willingness to educate yourself is critical anywhere you work. For tech, I think understanding the basics of data analysis and statistics are very critical. Not everybody loves math, not everybody loves statistics, but even within a company where everybody is competing against the same competitors outside, you're always competing with other very worthy colleagues and projects for the finite funds that your company has to invest in new programs or hiring more employees. So having the ability to make a data-driven case for why your program or your hire are a higher priority than somebody else's at that moment in time, that kind of data is really going to help you. That kind of skill is really going to help you. Marketing and sales skills are not just for people in marketing and selling. Persuasion is probably one of the most powerful skills that you can develop in any field of endeavor. So you may not have the opportunity to work in marketing or sales, but getting to know a little bit about what they do and how they do it will give you a better arsenal for your own skills of persuasion. Demonstrating that you're a good team member. It's great to be a superstar and to be functionally superior to everybody else around you. But again, there's very few industries, including in tech, where one superstar makes it all happen. And, you know, we're all used to seeing people like Elon Musk, or when he was still alive, Steve Jobs, or Jeff Bezos, and you look at them and say, oh, that's the guy. Well, that guy has thousands or tens of thousands of employees who are working on helping their dream, their vision for the future come to reality. And so, you know, you can be the smartest person in the room, but generally speaking, acting like you're the smartest person in the room and like you can do it all alone is not going to get you very far in a company. And so, you know, for those of you who play sports, you know, that's a good proof point that you've worked on a team. But any kind of volunteer work that you've done where you've needed to marshal the resources of other people and lead them to some kind of objective, that's really helpful. And that can be volunteering in the community, that can be Girl Scouting and Boy Scouting, that can be a lot of different things. But demonstrating to a potential employer that you are somebody who is a good teammate, who is focused on the results of the team and not just what's best for you as an individual, that's always going to be powerful. Oral and written communication skills, including in social media platforms. I'm sure that with a Middlebury education, you're not going to be lacking in opportunities to develop your written and oral communications. But again, especially where we rely more and more on platforms like email to make our positions clear to other people, you need to be able to make them clear in writing and not just when you're face to face. And certainly over the last year and a half where, you know, we've all been remote, we're probably relying on written communications more than ever. I think those are, you know, some sort of general business skills. When it comes to more niche positions within tech firms, engineering and development jobs are going to require specific coding skills. And you're going to need to demonstrate that you are adept in coding in those programming languages. One thing that I have noticed as a trend there, though, is you don't have to have a computer science degree to become a great software developer or hardware engineer. There are more and more what they call micro-credentialing kinds of programs out there that can help you augment. Maybe you've got a fine arts degree, maybe your degree is in dance, and you've decided that you would like to get into software development. There are firms out there like General Assembly, which is a pretty good one, where you can take a week-long, 4-week-long, 10-week-long course in things like user interface development or web design or principles of coding, where you can supplement your resume with these specific micro credentials without necessarily having devoted a 4-year degree to that topic.
What advice would you have for women who are interested in careers in technology?
For women who are interested in technology, I think that, you know, tech firms do tend to be pretty intense. They tend to be very competitive. Competitive with their competitors, but they can be pretty competitive internally. That being said, I always found, and I work for both startups and some of the biggest tech firms in the world. And generally speaking, I found the companies that I worked for to be as innovative around human resources practices as they were about their technology. When you're thinking about companies that you'd like to work for, And especially if you're thinking about combining a job with a family or any other responsibilities and interests that you have outside of work, it's worth digging a little deeply into that work culture, and especially as it is reflected in that company's policies, because a lot of companies will say they're super flexible and then you get there and it's like, not so much. So, for women in tech, the jobs are definitely out there because tech companies are always hiring. It's important to make sure that if you expect to combine work and a family, that you ask those probing questions on your way in to make sure that what you're signing up for is in fact, that the employment branding and marketing that they're doing actually maps to the experience that employees there are having.
I'm just curious, as you think back over your professional career, what is the change that came upon you both professionally and just generally in the world that you found most impactful?
When I first became a manager, a leader of other people, I had already been working post, MBA for about 12 years when I became a leader and no longer solely an individual contributor. And becoming a leader is a huge change, and lots of companies don't prepare you for that particularly well. And I think one of my early experiences as a boss, and I was promoted over a group of about 10 people that I had been a part of, that, we had been peers, and then the next day I'm the boss of everybody. And several weeks into that experience, one of my peers came in and said, or one of my employees came in and said, closed the door and said, "You know what? You are the boss. You have earned the right to tell us what to do. Nobody in this group resents the fact that you're the boss now. So you need to stop apologizing before you ask us to do something." So I think that, that was something that I think bled over into other areas of my life as well, that there was a reason that I was in the position that I was in, and that I didn't have to continually justify being in that role, because that also bled over into being a woman in a very male environment, and being a mother in an environment where a lot of those male colleagues did not have the same need to rush home at night that I did, because, again, we're talking the early 90s when I first became a boss. A lot of my male colleagues, still had a partner at home or a partner in a job where they definitely could be home to do the daycare pickup and make the meals and put the children to bed. And, I was married to somebody else who was also in a competitive job. We both traveled internationally. And so I had this whole, often thought about myself as, the duck or the swan that looks very graceful, skimming across the top of the water. And, under the water, was this crazy paddling job going on. So I think this is true for men and women, but having the confidence in yourself to put your ideas out there, to do your work, to be willing to withstand the measurement of your results. That was a mind switch I had to make from wanting everybody to like me all the time to wanting people to respect both my authority and my output. I still wanted people to think that I was fair and kind, but I had to learn that I was never going to have that 100% all the time, and that as long as I was acting in an ethical and kind way with people, that sometimes, you had to make difficult decisions that not everybody would agree with, and be okay with that.
Joyce, do you have any parting thoughts?
I do have some parting thoughts. I think I hope people will take away from this that tech jobs are not just for coders. Tech jobs are for just about any kind of functional specialty that you can think of. They are for dreamers. It can be very exciting to work in tech firms because, generally speaking, you're working with people who are fired up, who are excited about what they're doing, and who feel like they're doing something that's going to make the world a little better. And tech needs the kinds of insights that critical thinkers and liberal arts grads can bring to the table. And all you got to do is, look at the challenges that the world is having right now with the spread of disinformation through technology platforms to know that, there's been some critical thought missing along the way, and it's going to be required in spades to make sure that, we mitigate some of the harms that are already out there. Well, I'm just going to go with a principled fashion moving forward.
We've been speaking with Joyce Maroney, class of 1978, a 40-plus year technology industry executive. Thank you so much for your career perspectives, Joyce.
Well, thank you so much for having me.